Hey, 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 welcome everyone to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing. And we're going to start off the show with a handy dandy little video to get warmed up. Here we go. Boom.
Let me change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship, and what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine. And I'm excited to really bring this into light. There's a company called Continuum that we're merging with, and we will now be doing global education.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
All right. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast. Really excited to have Nurse Nique Pichette here today. We often talk about things that people don't want to talk about. However, they're really important subjects that need to be discussed to decrease stigma for healing. So before we get started, we've been highlighting and illuminating cannabis nurses and cannabis health professionals because we are in revolutionary times where we're changing how we approach and take care of patients. So I am illuminating one of my favorite inspirational cannabis nurses who has truly demonstrated what it means to walk your talk. We've been in the cannabis space together, and I'm honored to have her on to share her compelling story of healing. Nurse Nique Pichette has her master's in science and nursing. She's a 2-time breast cancer survivor, veteran of the United States Marine Corps, master prepared in nursing leadership, cannabis patient and advocate, and she's currently getting her doctorate, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about that. She's the founder of the Cannabis Nurse Navigator, which is a professional registered nurse with cannabis-specific knowledge who offers individualized assistance to patients, families, and caregivers to help overcome healthcare system barriers. She developed this while she was a student at Entrepreneur for All program in Massachusetts in 2016. The Cannabis Nurse Navigator provides education and resources to facilitate informed decision-making in a timely fashion to quality healthcare providers knowledgeable in cannabis therapeutics and psychosocial care through all the phases of the Cannabis Therapeutics Continuum. She is the CEO and founder of Positively Processing Perception, has her own podcast, workshop, and clothing line, all making an impact on the healing world, one perception at a time. So to quote Nurse Nique, she says, "Positively Processing Perception was created during the last 7 years of my therapeutic journey in post-traumatic growth. I have gained the insight and understanding of how the perception of my life experiences has kept me a prisoner of my past and has stunted my future growth towards a world of unconditional love and forgiveness. I've been living with mental health issues since I was 16 years old after my first suicide attempt. During my second battle with breast cancer in 2013, I found blogging and a therapeutic tool in my journey in healing from a perspective I was unaware of as a traditional registered nurse. Nursing taught me how to treat, cannabis taught me how to heal. Welcome, welcome, Nurse Nique. I am so excited to have you back on here. You know, October is Women's Health and Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And so, in honor of that, we're going to discuss your journey. We're going to discuss your journey using cannabis as medicine, your first time experiencing breast cancer, your second time, how it was different, and what led you on your journey to create the beautiful platforms that you've created for people to experience. So welcome, welcome. Let's get started. Hey.
Thank you so much. My goodness. I'm just Nurse Nique. That's all.
Nurse Nique. Well, there we go. Well, let's put your name up there. There you go. There's Nurse Nique.
It's just as simple as that. Don't need all the initials and all that stuff. I like to
you mean the alphabet soup at the end of the name, you mean?
Yeah, I just like to speak from a patient perspective. And that's where my journey has given me the most value. And I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And the very big difference from my first diagnosis and my second diagnosis was that in 2011, when I was first diagnosed, I had a full total left mastectomy. And with all the lab results and all the findings and research statistics, I had a 16% chance of my breast cancer coming back. An average everyday woman has a 12% chance of getting breast cancer, which gave me like a 4% chance of it coming back. And in 18 months, it returned to the same side under my lymph node in my left arm.
Now, just for the new viewers that are watching, did you use cannabis the first time with your diagnosis, your first diagnosis?
No, I did not. I actually was put on tamoxifen, which is for my breast cancer was estrogen positive. So even though I was a nurse, I wasn't an oncology nurse. I'm a psychiatric nurse, and I didn't know there were so many different types of breast cancer.
Right.
So my breast cancer was estrogen positive, some progesterone positive as well. And it was both invasive and non-invasive, which means that they did the total mastectomy because it already started to invade, my breast cells and stuff. And that's why they did the total left mastectomy.
Okay. All right. And so then your journey through breast cancer, you developed some really healthy tools. You started to blog, you started to write.
Yes.
You working out was a really big healthy tool for you as well.
That was with my second battle.
Okay.
The first battle, as life-changing as it could still be a secret to me because you can hide your chest, you can hide a mastectomy, you can, the world doesn't really see, what's underneath. And same thing with my mental health issues. You can present a certain way and the world doesn't see what's underneath. So in some ways my breast cancer mimicked my mental health, because on the outside I looked like everything was okay, yet on the inside there was like a huge struggle going on. So I did not start blogging until 18 months later when I was re-diagnosed with my breast cancer.
Okay, so what did that look like? What was that story about? You were just going in for a checkup, going in for, how did that transpire?
So I lost count, like I would say 20 plus surgeries to my chest between biopsies, surgeries, reconstruction, because prior to my breast cancer, I had a battle with my breast because I was always so flat chested. So I had breast augmentation thinking that was going to change how I felt about myself. And in fact, it was still a struggle because it just made me more insecure. So the breast augmentation was probably part of my life-saving event because my radiation oncologist said that without that augmentation, I probably wouldn't have found the lump for the first time. Going through all my reconstructive surgeries, I started to feel a lump under my left arm, like right deep in the armpit, and it was on a scar. So I just assumed that it was scar tissue until it started to change into a hard pea-size lump that resembled the lump that was there in my left breast when I was first diagnosed.
So, getting the second breast cancer diagnosis, did they give you information right away on what they wanted to do? Did you, how did that play out?
So I was
And
at
what made you decide to turn to cannabis? Like, what was the
I
story?
was at my plastic surgeon's office when I showed him the lump because I was getting ready for another surgery, and he told me to immediately contact my oncologist. So I contacted my oncologist, got an appointment, and I will never forget it because I was actually getting my biopsy the day after the Boston Marathon bombing. So I was at Brigham and Women's in pre-op with an anesthesiologist who had been working all night long with the survivors and some who didn't survive of that tragic event. And that's when I said, breast cancer is really nothing when you look at what I'm sitting here with. And that's how I went into pre-op. And when I got out of post-op, now, when you have cancer, when you have certain types of terminal illness, your hospital team becomes a family. You spend an awful lot of time with them. You joke with them, you cry with them, you laugh with them, you get mad at them. They're a part of a subset of your family. So when my surgeon came out of surgery and I asked, "Hey, doc, what do you think?" And when he looked at me and said 50-50 and walked away, I knew my cancer was back. Um, so with everything that was going around, and then there was another bomb scare. So I wasn't allowed to leave the hospital. I had to wait for the SWAT team and everything to clear this bomb scare and process everything that was happening. So that's when I, had to go home like everyone else and wait the 10 days for the actual diagnosis. Again, parts of cancer journeys that unless you're a patient or you're very close to somebody that's been a patient, you don't understand the mental anguish that you go through with a diagnosis. Never mind the body changes and the choices or lack thereof that you have for treatment and therapy. So I called a few days early because I couldn't wait anymore. And at the time, I was living in Narragansett, Rhode Island, at the ocean. And the nurse or whoever answered the phone said, the doctor's going to have to talk to you. So again, I knew what my answer was. And I went over to the water and sat on the bench and just started to talk to my dad because the ocean is where I have my connection with my dad since he's passed. And I cried and I couldn't understand why. Now, this was 2013. So if you look at the chain of events, 2008, I won a 4-year custody battle with my daughter. 2010, I went through my third divorce. 2011, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. 2012, I lost my house to a short sale. And 2013, my breast cancer came back. So these are other pieces when you're sick and when you're going through these things that we don't talk about. As nurses, as doctors, you're focused on what you're treating, and the mind, body, spirit, and community is left out of the treatment plan.
Right.
So I walked back to my apartment and literally said, you know, Dad, like, help me with this because I don't know what to do. And I said, there's got to be something else I need to learn, or there's got to be somebody that I need to touch. And I
Mm.
started my blog, Breast Cancer and Me. And it was just a live journal. I didn't have any followers. I didn't really have anything going on. It was just a way for me to write what I was feeling and share it with whoever wanted to read it, coming from a nurse perspective who was a patient struggling with all of these life events at the same time as trying to again get back up, start that process again, and figure out how to push through all the negativity.
Wow. Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. It's a lot. You've been through a lot. I know a lot of your story and you're just incredible. I literally. So here you are. Okay. So you go home, you're asking your dad for help to make a decision as to what, what type of choices you should make to go forward. What led to cannabis? Like what was it that,
Through my blog, people kept
there you
telling
go.
me, try cannabis, try
Mm,
cannabis, try cannabis. And I was like, I'm a director of nursing operations. I'm going to lose my license. Cannabis is a drug. I was anti cannabis, like from every angle that you could imagine, from how it made me feel in high school and college, from I'm a nurse and I'm going to lose my license, from I'm a mom and I don't want my kids doing this stuff. Like, just, however you wanted to look at it, my perception was extremely negative when it came to this plant.
right. Right. Okay. So here we go. We all know what a miracle is. A miracle is a change of perception. So what was that miracle? What was that aha moment that said, maybe I'll give this a try?
Seeing a photograph with my son, and myself, and I was emaciated at 110 pounds and bald and frail, and I was allergic to all the antiemetics for my chemotherapy, and I was in recovery from anorexia. And when I saw that picture, like a light bulb went off, because I said, if this is 110 pounds and I look like this, what did I look like at 93 pounds? Because that was the worst of my illness. And I did not want to become that person again. So I reached out to Steve Plasek, who's from Pennsylvania, and he was one of the biggest influencers on my journey, and said, okay, like, how do I do this legally? What do I need to do? I'm a nurse. Like, I have a lot on the line here,
Right.
but, you know, I could possibly be dying. So,
Right.
I mean, what do I do?
And so what type of resources were you able to reach out to help you in the
I,
community?
I was living in Rhode Island. It was a lot of legwork on my own. You know,
I know.
it was a lot of my own perseverance,
Yep.
getting my medical card through Rhode Island, which was a medically legal state. And in Rhode Island at the time, you could pick a caregiver and a dispensary.
Hmm.
So I had the absolute gift of having Chapman Dickerson at
Hmm.
as one of my caregivers, who's also a veteran. And I picked a dispensary that I ended up working at for a while. So I started to learn about what goes on in a dispensary, what goes on in the grow, what are edibles, what are patients that are coming in, what are they getting, what is it doing for them, as I was going through my own journey on the outside with Chappie.
Right.
And Chappie really helped to guide me into a safe way, and changing my whole outlook of plant medicine and what this plant could do for me.
There you go. That's amazing. That's wonderful. That is the reason why I am so passionate about the grassroots community. Because like you, Nurse Sneak, I didn't have anyone to turn to. I knew it worked, but I was like, how can I make this work for me so I can function below the threshold of being impaired? right? How do people do this? How do they make their medicine? How do they grow? How do they use it? How? I just didn't know. And it was through you being with a caregiver, me too, with caregivers, having that experiential learning of being with people that do this all the time, people in the community that care, that grow medicine for other people. You know, people call them dealers. Well, guess what? They were my healers, because without them, I wouldn't be here today, for sure. For sure. And so then that, Nique, I'm just assuming, and I shouldn't make assumptions, that through your own journey and you trying to figure out how to make cannabis work for you to optimize, you know, the conventional medicine, to bridge the gap and to grow and evolve, didn't that kind of like spark a little spark to have you start to create the Cannabis Nurse Navigator?
It did. I mean, I used bodybuilding and cannabis to get me through my second battle with breast cancer. And I really didn't know much about the endocannabinoid system back then. So I didn't realize that through, you know, as you said, I did attempt suicide at 16 years old. And if you back up to that, I turned to bodybuilding to get me through it, not realizing but not realizing the endorphins and the bliss molecule and all that stuff that happens when you exercise. So fast forward to, you know, 2013, and I start to use a plant that starts to release this bliss molecule along with the exercise that I was doing, and journaling and blogging and going outside, and photography, music, and it really helped to change exactly what it says, change the perception and change my life, because after I started to learn more and more about the plant and doing research and finding people that could help me grow in love, is where I started to learn more about the benefits of this plant. Because like I think I heard you say that you already like knew there were positive benefits of cannabis. I myself didn't. I was so
Mm,
blocked off of cannabis,
right.
like it just wasn't even on my radar. I was actively working, and again in the medical field. I mean, it just, especially in 2011, 2013, you know, unless you have a terminal illness or something that's gonna, where it shows up for you, it's just not something that I even
Right.
thought of.
Yeah. I didn't, you know, it's funny too in my journey, you know, when I, with my illness, I didn't think of cannabis either, because I never learned about it as medicine. I've always was taught about it that it was recreational, and I enjoyed it recreationally, but not all the time. You know what I mean? So it never came across my radar until it was a 70-year-old nurse who came to my house and told me to get with the program and just said, Sherry, you know, cannabis has been around for a long time. And she goes, and I've been around for a long time. And she says, I've been using a little bit of cannabis every day for 53 years, and I'm not on any ongoing pharmaceuticals, and I've never been hospitalized. With that being said, that's not for everyone, but it was something that really opened up my eyes, and I needed to think about that. I needed to look at that and pull myself out of the story and be like, you're right, I have nothing to lose. I felt like I was dying. Cannabis came in, it worked. But the issue was being high all the time. So that's where my journey came in, where I needed to figure out how to make it work. Granted, being high is fun, but you know, when you're a sick and suffering patient, your goal is to feel good and to function, not to, you know, not to be laying around doing nothing, right? Is to elevate you, to make you feel well enough so that you can engage in other health and wellness activities, to get back to living a quality of life, to bridge the gap from what you're not getting from conventional medicine. And just like Nique said, right, it wasn't just all about cannabis. And that's the very, very important point that I want to make. It is about all of the tools in the toolbox. Cannabis is one piece of the pie. So cannabinoid therapeutics is all about utilizing multiple different things to support and nourish the endocannabinoid system. The goal is to use the least amount to get the most therapeutic effect below the threshold of being impaired, right? You want to use this effectively, safely. And so the interesting thing too, Nique, about your story, and I know this, is that you're very sensitive to cannabis. So this is another important topic to bring up, because I have a hard time with those very blanket protocols that go out there for cancer patients. You know, a lot of cancer patients, they have these very strict protocols that the community of caregivers have created. And while I think it's wonderful, I've seen a lot of cancer patients do very, very well with not that much. And then a lot of patients too with high doses of THC can have very, very bad adverse reactions and can scare them. So will you share a little bit about your experience with THC? Because I want our viewers to, you know, have a real, I want them to have a reality check that, you know, that it's really important that we look at all aspects, that cannabis medicine is personal, it needs to be customized, and a one size fits all approach doesn't work. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I personally, when I talk about my use with cannabis, I choose to talk about it from a patient perspective. And when
Right.
I talk to other patients or somebody that comes to me, I talk to them from a patient perspective. And basically, it's what are you looking to achieve?
There you go.
And that's all I was doing when I was working with Chappie. You know, I wasn't researching research articles and dosing protocols and all that stuff.
Right.
I sat with Chappie and said, look, I can't sleep at night. By the time cannabis came into my life, I was already involved in radiation. I had third-degree burns, you know, under my arm. It was just trying to figure out how I can stop losing weight, how I can sleep at night, and how I can feel better. And it was trial and error because when they say microdose, everybody has a different view of what a microdose is. So if
You're
you
right.
give me 100 milligram candy bar and I'm take one of the pieces of it and they're each 10 milligrams, somebody would consider that a microdose, but for me that's a macro dose, right? So
Okay.
my microdose is 2.5 milligrams.
Right.
Anything above 2.5 milligrams for me, I know I am going to have some kind of high or feeling of not being totally in control. And that for me comes across as intense, deep, severe paranoia. Over the time, I've learned that it's absolutely fascinating that with cannabis, it was a safe journey to learn how to dose myself versus pharmaceuticals. I've never had the opportunity to do that. And I've come to the point in my journey with cannabis that I can literally, some weeks, if I'm feeling okay and I'm outside walking and I'm not working a bazillion hours at the hospital and my sleep hygiene is on point, I might do 2 or 3 2.5 milligram, you know, cacao edibles in that week. And it's
Mhm.
still going to be enough to maintain my
Yep.
endocannabinoid system. And then there's other weeks where I need to do that 2.5, sometimes 5 milligrams every day until
Mhm.
all of a sudden I start to feel that paranoia coming back again. And that's when I know it's time for me
To
to
cut
take a
back.
step back and I don't have to use any because you remember cannabis, the THC stays in your system for can be depending on your body fat for up to 3 to 4 weeks. So
Yep.
when you get to understand your endocannabinoid system and see how it works with you, you can potentially only use it like a regular pharmaceutical when they say, oh, take it every other day or take
Right.
it once a week. Or, you
Mhm.
know, there's different pharmaceuticals that do the same thing. And I've been very blessed that I've been able to learn how to do that with my own body and know that I can stay more more at peace and less paranoid and less mistrusting of others around me
Right.
because the other thing that cannabis helps you bring to the surface is trauma.
Yes.
And um, it starts to help you um, bring love and into yourself and to start to touch on those places of darkness and the trauma that we've been through. And for people to think they've never been through trauma, just coming out of the birth canal is a traumatic event.
There you go. I know. Waking up going, oh my God, it's cold out here. I want to go back.
I didn't ask to be here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But Nick, make some really, really good points. The point about, your cannabinoid requirements changing over time as you change. Absolutely. We're constantly changing. Our cells, we create trillions of cells and we're like new people every 7 years. You think about that, right? And so our cannabinoid requirements change over time as we change. And microdosing is so important because microdosing actually mimics our own endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system is like an on off switch, constantly going on and off all day. However, the goal is if your system is regulated, doing all the things like eating right, exercising like Nique does, stress management, writing, doing all these other things, her cannabinoid requirements change over time so she doesn't need as much. And that's the part that's so cool about plant medicine is that you really, really get in tune with your body and you get to understand aspects of yourself that you didn't understand before. And that leads into the next part of our conversation, which I'm really excited to talk about, is trauma recovery, post-traumatic growth, and what you've created with positively processing perception. Your workshop has changed my life.
Oh, thank you, Sherry.
Oh, has it ever? So
Thank you.
really, really, really fascinating. It's been really fun to be on this journey with you. It's been really amazing how your workshop has completely helped me to overcome a lot of blocks that I've had and to move through my own trauma to show up in a different way. So let's talk about how that came about because I just love the platform that you have. You've created a podcast, you have a clothing line, and it just really all syncs together with what you're doing in the community today, really bringing about change. So here we go. How did you get into the perception coach? What is the perception coach for our new viewers?
The perception coach is just a way to look at the perception of your life circumstances and choices. And perception is based on our senses. So the way we look, the way we smell, hear, taste, feel, all those are part of our perception. So you can read something in an email, you can get a text message, you can see something on social media, you can get a letter in the mail, you can pick up the phone and have a conversation. There's going to be a different perception on each and every one of those entities. What happens and why I created positively processing perception, and Sherry, you and I both know we've gone through our own struggles with perception and
Totally.
how our own traumas triggered reactions because we weren't at the places that we each needed to be. And I take 100% responsibility for that. And I'm grateful for that because life is about constant change. So positively processing perception helps us get in tune with our triggers.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be triggered? What is a trigger? And oftentimes a trigger is usually negative.
Right.
And so positively processing perception, or P3P for easier terms, is how when you're triggered, how you can pause and, stop not what people are doing to you, but what your own thoughts and feelings and emotions are doing to you. One piece of this that's huge that I've learned as a psychiatric nurse that I was taught by an incredible mental health tech that I worked with many years ago was that, people can only make you feel the way you allow them to make you feel. It's how you feel about yourself that's going to change your perception of your future self. And until you can process that and learn that it's okay to have these triggers, it's okay that you've been through trauma, it's okay that life dealt you what it did, because everybody we meet, the books we read, the places we go, gives us wisdom and helps us to learn to become authentically who we're supposed to be.
Exactly. Wow. Good stuff. So then that led to, positively processing perception workshop led to the podcast.
Yes.
So tell us a
Yes.
little bit about the podcast and where people can join in and listen.
Well, I do have to give kudos to, Tony Kramer from the 420 support group is where positively processing was started. And it was started from a petal of the lotus flower that came from Heather Manis's lotus theory, in which she has helped me immensely over the past 6 years of my life on this journey of post-traumatic growth. And then from there, Sherry, as you know, we were working on different platforms, and we started with you allowed me to bring my groups to your location, and we started with the live groups, and then the pandemic hit.
Exactly.
And we started a world of, we did a year of testing out like the foundation of the direction and the trajectory of where this was going. So now it's a podcast that's through Eric B. Media, and they can be seen on positivelyprocessingperception.com. I was blessed with the incredible um, uh, resource of Starlight Monday, who helped build a really powerful online business and website and was really instrumental in bringing together all the pieces of my story and getting it out there authentically. And, it takes a village. It takes a village. And, we all come to a place of our own authenticity at our own time. So there's not an age limit, and there's not a time frame, and there's not a monetary value that you can put on it. It's just something that you have to come from internally, and hopefully positively processing perception will help others like it's helped me.
Yeah, it totally has. Amazing stuff. Now, do you want to talk about your clothing line? Because I think that that's really fun.
So my clothing line started in 2015 as Nique Wear, and it was branded through Fight to Win was my biggest one, and that was utilizing cannabis and bodybuilding, and that logo with the pot leaf and such, to help kind of show that I was using cannabis and exercise like together. But in 2013, that wasn't too that wasn't too positive. So that was, as you said, I was uh, found, or I was accepted into Entrepreneurs for All with Nique Wear, and that clothing line is where the Cannabis Nurse Navigator was started, because Entrepreneurs for All was like, Nique, with everything that you got going on, you're selling T-shirts. So through that, Cannabis Nurse Navigator came out, and I kind of put the clothing line aside for a while. And then last year, by some crazy life chance, somebody on Facebook said, "Hey, my name in the Urban Dictionary means whatever." So I was like, "Wow, I wonder what my name means in the Urban Dictionary." And I looked up Nique, and it said, well, in the French language, Nique means, yeah, fuck. Right?
The F word.
So I'm like, oh my God, not only am I dealing with cannabis, now I'm dealing with like this slang, but like I was a Marine, so like it's appropriate for, like, I kind of like was always okay with that. But anyway, so Nique became a new way to look at mental health and mental health
Love it.
diagnoses and the stigma attached to mental health and cannabis nursing. I mean, it all kind of just ties together. So
Exactly.
Nique is the eloquent way to say fuck it. And through that, my latest creation is Straight Out of the Psych Unit. And that is actually where my passion is. And it's, I have gotten a little bit of negative attention from it. Somebody reached out to me and felt offended by it. But the bottom line is it started the conversation. And if somebody goes to, I also have the Nique.com website. So if anybody goes to that site to look at the clothing line, they'll understand the story behind the line and the brand. So whether you're a psych patient or you work in the psychiatric community, again, it's the perception. Straight out of the psych unit. Did I just get off my shift? Did I just
Right, exactly.
did I just get out of a locked unit? You know,
Right,
is it
exactly.
just your perception of me because what you think of me based on your, your contact with me or what somebody's told you about me? Again, it's just a play on words to show that how powerful,
They are.
yeah.
Words are very powerful, and and people create, you have a word like hi, right? Same thing. People's perception of the word hi is very negative, right? Except for if you're a stoner. But we're trying to change the dialogue for patients around what it means to feel good and be high, and taking the negative out of it, right? So the same thing, taking the negative connotation out. What does it mean to be in I'm going to call it mental wellness, right? That's what we're really working for, is mental wellness, healthcare, in a way that makes sense for patients. Um, Anyway, so what I would love to talk about is, if you're open to, is how you really helped a patient get through a moment of crises using one of your perception tools, um, in regards to cannabis.
So I think one of my most difficult patients, friends was, and you know him, Sherry, was David, who's a Vietnam veteran. And he has, I've seen him in the most severe PTSD crises that I've ever seen anybody. And positively processing perception really helped him slow down that psychotic uh, thought process, rapid thoughts, rapid speech, rapid everything, just moving, that fight or flight, that going back into the war zone, like coming back from reality, like come back home, David, like you're not where you are. And simply just by squeezing your finger and thumb together, balance and calmness, as Raphael taught us the other day, with his hand symbolism, the thumb and the fourth digit is balance and calmness, and I've always used this, not realizing that's what those two fingers represent. And when you have balance and calmness, you're going to be okay. So again, that was part of the significance of helping him, and helping him change the perception of his thoughts and what he was feeling, and just stopping what was going on inside of his head. Also, when he was inhaling, for some people that means inhaling cannabis, and for David, who has a very high tolerance, who has significant PTSD, he consumes very high doses of cannabis. So for him to be able to sit there and inhale his cannabis, um, was actually extremely beneficial to help him quiet down while he was working on pausing and stopping what was going on in his mind.
Yeah, yeah. I met him, and you've done some amazing work with him. I mean, really, he was on the podcast last year. You did a
Mhm.
podcast with him, which was very, very powerful. So thank you for all you do in the community. So for the new people that are out there, so there might be some woman that is watching that may have breast cancer, or a family member. If someone that is new to cannabis that has breast cancer, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
First of all, it's a personal journey. And if that is something that they want to add to their treatment plan, then they need to find the support where they can do that from. They also have to understand that it's a spiritual journey, and a lot of traditional medicine doesn't talk about spirit, and spirit
Right,
is breath, and breath is life, and life is the way that we bring, love. So the breathing and the work that comes with that, and bringing spirituality into your breast cancer,
yeah,
is very, very important. Also, too, finding groups that can support you not only on your cannabis journey, but in your breast cancer. And if I may, House of Volta with Story Nagel was absolutely instrumental in helping me with
right.
my body, mind, spirit, and community when it came to my journey of healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Very powerful stuff. So in honor of Women's Health Month and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, Elizabeth Mack at Holistic Caring is offering 25% off all of her programs. And she does have an amazing module on cancer and cannabis that I was able to utilize in one of our presentations and community groups. Really good stuff. So we hope you guys check that out. We also have a free community. The Holistic Caring Green Nurse community is off of social media. It's private, it's uncensored. It's not only for nurses, but it's for providers all over the globe and for patients. So we have a free introductory to cannabis course, free patient portal, free patient support group, free monthly webinar, which we had today on migraines. We have a free book club, and you don't even need to own the book. So we really want to get people into the community to come in to get the help that they need, for you to learn. And so we hope to have Nique come into the community and share her perception workshop with all of us, because I know it is very, very needed. Really excited that you came on the show today to share all the things that you're doing. And Nique, it's been an honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing you this weekend at the American Cannabis Nurses Association conference and the Cannabis Nurses Network events that are going to be planned in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I think it's going to be really good, really fun. We're all going to connect together. So I'm just going to end with one of my other favorite videos that truly really means a lot to me and means a lot as to why I'm doing what I'm doing today. Here we go.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name, and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.
And so there we have it, growing in health, growing in cannabis. We love you all. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be going live all next weekend and next week during the American Cannabis Nurses Association and the Cannabis Nurses Network. So make sure you follow us, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. And remember what it's all about. It's all about living your best life and helping others do the same.